So along the way, I became an adventurer. And I was a sea kayaker. I had paddled around Cape Horn and some stuff like that. And as I was, getting into my 50s, I decided I wanted to paddle across an ocean. And I thought, well, I'd do the Pacific Ocean, so I wouldn't, at the end of it, feel like, there was something more that I wanted to do. So we started off in these Wind Rider things. They're trimarans, carried quite a bit of sail. They're 16 feet, the same length as a sea kayak, open cockpit boats. And we took off across the North Bering Sea on a 2-year expedition. Actually, we thought it was going to be a 1-year expedition, but it took an extra year. We got kind of beat up in the curls. This is the topic of my second book, In the Wake of the Shaman. And the Wind Riders, they seemed fast, but actually they were really slow. We only averaged 15 miles a day. We might make 15 miles in 1 hour, but then we'd go backwards for the rest of the day or something. So we decided to change to kayaks for the second year. The first year was 1,000 miles. And then it was getting late in the season, and we weren't moving fast enough, so we came the next year, paddled up the coast of Kamchatka, 2,000 miles, 4 months. Kamchatka is the home to the greatest concentration of active volcanoes and grizzly bears on the planet. It's a wild and beautiful place. Are there any skiers in the crowd? This is a ski town. This line here, I came back to ski, 7,000 feet of fall line. It's a beautiful ski line, some of the best, longest ski runs in the world in Kamchatka. So it was a hard trip. Technically, it was difficult. We ran into surf every day. There's essentially no harbors along the coast. The surf landing, surf launchings fetch all the way across the Pacific. You're totally at the exposure of the North Pacific and the North Pacific storms. But this is what we're out for. If you're a rock climber and you decide to climb something steep, then you're not bummed out if it's steep. You're joyful. When you put ice in the surf, then it added another technical level that actually became downright scary. So this is when you start to understand this. All of a sudden, it became totally aware that this was the hardest trip in my life. And there's a whole genre of public speaking called the Everest speakers. There's even an Everest Speakers Bureau. And the kind of motivational talk is, if you want to climb the top of the corporate ladder like I climb the mountain, you have to narrow down, you have to focus, you have to get a team, you have to put one foot in front of the other. It's just not the way it works. It doesn't work that way. When the going gets tough, you have to relax. You have to open up. You have to be observant. You have to tune into the environment. You can't put the blinders on and go forward, because then something will hit you from the side, that you didn't notice about. So you have to feel the ice. You have to feel the ocean. And this is when magic started to sink in the hardest of times, not the easiest of times. And maybe this is why I got to meet Moolynaut. I don't know exactly what happened spiritually. I know what happened physically. We were paddling along the coast. I was checking my barometer. No storm. All of a sudden, no pressure change. A big storm came up just as we came close to the town of Vyvenka. It was really howling, and the waves were building, and it was getting to be a nasty cut, and we said, we better go in. So we came in through the surf. We landed, and this woman, Lydia, was standing on the beach in a big, long Russian peasant coat and a dog fur cap, and she says, "Welcome. We are glad to see you. We were expecting you. The grandmother caused the storm to bring you to the village. She wants to talk to you." And what did I think? I thought I'm a chemist from suburban Connecticut. I went to high school with George W. Bush. That's a fact. I thought, you know, it's not my job to criticize, to be cynical, to be a wise guy. I'm hungry, I'm cold, I'm strung out, I'm tired. There's a storm out there that could kill me. I said, great, great. And she ushered us in, and we went to see the grandmother, and she was cleaning fish. It was a busy time, fishing season. You're bringing in food for the winter. She wasn't in much of a mood to talk. She grasped me by the elbow as we were leaving, and she said, John, I'd like you to come back. It will be good for you. And we paddled away, Misha, my Russian partner and I, Misha, and we paddled away, and he looked at me and I looked at him, and he said, we have to come back. And I took a turn then, and for the next 5 years, I concentrated on spending time in this village. It was just an instantaneous decision, drop everything in your life. This is the story, this is what's happening, do it. So we came back, and Moolynaut set us out on the first of many missions. There were reindeer people out in the tundra. All the reindeer were gone from Vyvenka. There were 0 reindeer in Vyvenka. Some reindeer herders had escaped into the tundra, into this vastness of Siberia, 9 time zones from east to west. And she sent us off to find the reindeer and the reindeer people who were escaping predation, who were escaping vodka, who were escaping the whole trials and tribulations of bandito capitalism. I'm going to read a piece here from Moolynaut's childhood. I'm reading 2 short pieces out of the book. I read this piece not as a call to arms. There's a talk about weaponry in it. It's more of a story to get a feeling for these people. This event occurred in Siberia against this historical sweep. I also see it somewhat of a metaphor of her life bridged the gap from the Stone Age to the modern age. Was born during the reign of Tsar Nicholas. Now, the Bolshevik Revolution is sweeping across the land. In those days, the American traders would come to Russia, the Russian traders would go to Alaska. So the American traders were coming in. And usually when the American traders came, the children would come down on the beach and they'd get candy and everything. And this time, Moolynaut's father told the children they couldn't come. The herders brought the reindeer down to the beach. Moolynaut, as a 10-year-old girl, climbs up the hill and looks down on the beach. The Americans watched the herd for several minutes, and the headman talked with my father. Then the strangers lifted several wooden boxes out of the boat, set the boxes on the beach, and pried open the lids. My father reached down, grasped a shiny new rifle, and cradled it gingerly. My uncle walked down, set 3 sticks in the sand. 3 shots rang out. 3 sticks fell over. My father nodded. The men lassoed several deer and tied their hooves together. Then the Americans grabbed the animals and unceremoniously threw them in the boats. I started to cry. My people frequently sold hides and meat, but they never sold live deer to anyone. My father told me that he would never sell live deer to the Americans because they weren't loving enough and they didn't know how to care for the deer. One young bull shook his head free, struggled to his knees, and looked up at the hilltop where I was hiding. That was my deer. I had tamed it, fed it succulent mosses, and even brought it pieces of salty dried fish as a delicacy. My mother taught me special chants and spells to protect the deer from marauding wolves. And the deer listened. Moolynaut fell silent, and a few tears rolled down her cheeks.